Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Today, early voting starts in the great state of Texas, and we only have 15 days to go until the proper election day, but you can go out there and make your voice heard immediately. And here to give you another pitch, since you are now eligible to go vote, is Blonde Kamala back on the James Show yet again to make her last pitch on why should they vote for you, Blonde Kamala?
Well, first, let me just say this, okay? Texas, I want you to vote early, and I want you to vote often, right?
Well, in our state, you're only allowed to vote once legally, so...
Right. Well, that's exactly what I said. And the other part, obviously, that was something that Donald Trump said, obviously, of course.
So one of the main issues in the election is deportations. We now have like 90% of Republicans, but around over 40% of Democrats would be okay with a mass deportation program. If you're elected, would you implement mass deportation?
Right. Well, here's the thing. We need to put the focus on the real issue here and the real problem. And obviously that is Donald J. Trump. Okay, and that's what we need to be talking about, not about what I have done or will do, because that is irrelevant, right? You know what I'm saying?
I guess. I figured your policies would be relevant if you're running for president. But Donald Trump was working the fry machine at a McDonald's yesterday. Of course, it was just a photo op setup. But it was to bring attention to the fact that you may be lying about having worked at McDonald's previously. Do you have any sort of proof or witnesses?
Well, here's the thing, and let me be clear with you, James. I consider myself to be a joyful warrior, right? And I like to bring joy wherever I go, okay? And, there are places like McDonald's that I have brought joy to with my joyfulness. And, Donald Trump, he does not bring the joy like I do. Right?
Sounds like you're just trying to say joy a lot. And I did enjoy that term, joyful warrior, because I saw like the battle scene of Braveheart. Wasn't this joyful, being a warrior? Look how joyful that is. Anyway, it's like saying I have some really dry water. Blonde Kamala, early voting starts today. We already have people coming to the polls, but there's people that are concerned that there may be some shenanigans like we saw 4 years ago. What would you say to quell those concerns, Blonde Kamala?
Well, here's the thing, and to your point, the American people, they have concerns. And you know what they have concerns about? Donald Trump. That's what they have concerns about, okay? That's the concern.
That's the concern? Not the price of groceries or...
No, it's all about Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying?
I guess so. All right. Man, I can't stand you. Will you stop and give the phone to Elsa for a second?
Hey there.
Hey, Elsa Kurt. Man, I hope you lose.
Hello.
I hope you lose in like 2 weeks.
I hope so too.
I will happily not do that character again because I hate doing it.
Same, my friend. It pains me. It pains me tremendously.
Like, I know it's funny, but it's like, hey, James, go fall down the stairs. It'll be funny. And I realized I'll go watch the video, and that's pretty funny, me hurting myself. But that is, the thing I think about Blonde Kamala is I do a lot of interviews with people who aren't as funny as you, who aren't doing a joke, and they really do sound like that. And I hate those. It's
terrifying that this is real life. And what's more terrifying to me every time is the people that are supporting it and are saying that this is okay, this is good. An installed nominee, all of the things, as Kamala would probably say, all of the things are just shocking beyond words. And I don't know how they don't see it. I mean, they must be watching, I don't know what they're watching mainstream, right? And that's where they're getting all their information. But yeah, it's exhausting. I'll be happy to retire her. I really will. People ask all the time. I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm okay with retiring her and getting back to some semblance of America here, Right.
But look, you're way up in the Northeast. And so down here in Texas, we have a completely different view of what the election looks like. What is it like being in such a deep blue? What are you in, Connecticut or something?
Yeah.
What's it like?
As blue can be.
Is it like disheartening? Like you don't even want to go to the polls because it's not like we're going to win anyway. So what's the point? And your only motivation is really the down ballot races.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that feel that way, and it fills me with anxiety when people think like that. You have to get out and vote. You just have to do it. Make your voice be heard. And, I'm a big fan of reminding people that if you want to see the change happen, you have to get involved and you have to stand somewhere on all of this, and starting local is the place to start. But, it is disheartening. It is frustrating that we keep voting in the same people and the same problems over and over again and then expecting change, right?
Well, yeah, and the concern I have for your mental well-being is for most states, they're red states that just have blue around the population centers. But you are in a state that is plus 16 for Kamala Harris, and there is no red county you can run to because, where I'm sitting, it's a pretty deep blue precinct or jurisdiction. But if I drive an hour or two in any direction, I'm in deep red territory. You don't have that.
No, we don't. And and I unfortunately I believe it is a kind of a foregone conclusion that Connecticut will, it'll be for Kamala. It'll remain blue. We will learn no lessons from anything that's happening. And it's frustrating. It is absolutely frustrating. I look forward to my husband's retirement and getting over to a red state,
Well, come on down here. We have better weather anyway. Blonde Kamala, how do they find you outside of WBAP?
They can find me on all the social media places, Elsa Kurt Official, Elsa Kurt Show, and elsakurt.com. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you so much. Now, when we continue, since today is the first day for early voting here in Texas, I'm going to give you some of the rules and get you all set up and get you ready for the early voting. Early voting starts today, but I want to ask you, who are you voting for and why? I know this is like a layup question, but this is early voting. I'll do this again on Election Day, and then we won't have to do this crap again for 4 more years. And I mean that in a fun way. This is good crap. I'll put your fist down, Garrett. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. Election season decision 2024 officially kicks off today. Early voting starts in the great state of Texas. What are some of the rules? How does this work? What do I do, Parker? Why are you asking me? I'm just some goober on the radio. Oh, yeah, that's because we talk about politics all the time. Also, I'm asking the question, who are you voting for and why? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I would really like to hear someone from Team Blue. And I'm not going to give you a hard time. I will ask you why. And if you call in and you say Trump, I'm going to ask you why and have an answer for it. Don't be like, he seems like a nice guy. Just don't do that. Tell me why. We're going to have a grown-up conversation here. Not, I hate the other lady, or let's not do that. You just tell me who you're voting for, why. 800-288-9227. WFAA, our news partner, has some election info. This is a great summary on what today means for Texans.
Listen up. If you plan to vote in this year's presidential election, there are a few key dates you need to know. Election Day is November 5th. In Texas, in-person early voting begins October 21st and ends November 1st.
That's today.
Election administrators encourage you to vote early. You can't control the weather, an emergency, or if you get ill on Election Day, their message to you...
Hang on. I thought we could control the weather. Isn't that what they did with the Illuminati and the hurricanes?
Just don't wait. They also say to check the operating hours of your specific voting location during early voting on Election Day, November 5th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's not necessarily the case for the 2 weeks of early voting. You can find operating hours on your county's website. If you're applying for a mail-in ballot, that deadline is October 25th. And your application must be received, not postmarked, by that date. Election administrators want to clear up misinformation and false narratives. They say if you vote early or by mail, your vote will count. Just hit these important deadlines I've mentioned. Hopefully you've registered to vote already. That deadline was October 7th. And remember, it'll always be 30 days out from Election Day. We have a lot more information to help you prep for the election. Just go to WFAA.com/vote. I'm Adriana D'Alba.
Thank you, Adriana. That was a fantastic summary. Thank you to our news partners, WFAA. By the way, good job again on the Texas senatorial debate that y'all did last week. Good stuff. So 800-288-9227. For whom are you voting and why? For whom are you voting and why? 800-288-9227. Yeah, this early voting thing, I was appreciating Casey Bartholomew's show because I feel about half as strong as he does about this issue, but this is one we agree on. You know, I hear a lot on the times we disagree, but this is something where I don't like early voting. Like, okay, we have early voting and you should definitely go do it. Make no mistake, I'm not discouraging anyone from early voting by all means. That's the rules. Go out there and play by them. Get it done. But this is something that's relatively new in all of human history. And even back in the days when we had like horses and buggies, if you were lucky, we didn't have mail-in voting. We didn't have absentee voting. We had it on one day and you had one day to get it in. They were all counted in one day. And by the time you woke up the next day, we knew who won. This was before we even had a speak and spell, much less iPhones in our pockets. There's no excuse, at least technologically speaking, why we shouldn't have the votes counted the night of. And this whole idea of early voting and mail-in voting and absentee voting, I get the premise behind it. You know, like, what if you're in an offshore oil rig and you don't get to vote that day? What if you're a trucker who's in the middle of a haul? You don't get to vote that day? Or look, I would rather it all just be on one day, where it all gets counted on one day. We have the answer in one day, than open up all these other channels for shenanigans to happen. I think it's more important that we have a more secure election than we inconvenience a few people who it doesn't fit in their schedule. And that's sad, and I'm sorry, but that's the trade-off I'm willing to take. Because every one of these relaxed rules, every one of these attempts to make it more accessible opens it up to another channel of possible fraud. And look, again, I feel sorry for people who are indigent. If you're 91 years old and you have a hard time getting to the polls and you find out when you get there that there's like a 2-hour line and you're on a walker and they don't let you cut and you can't really physically do it. I'm sorry, but that's how it was done for hundreds of years until this new system popped up. And for some reason, it wasn't too much of a problem then. It wasn't too much of a problem when they set the system up where you all vote on one day. And you have to be at the certain place. They had 90-year-olds back then. And you know what? They had 90-year-olds that didn't have a car with air conditioning in it. They didn't even have a house with air conditioning in it. They didn't have half the luxuries or technological advancements that we have today, the mobility advancements, and the founding fathers were okay with it. So I am okay with it. I think these are all just flimsy excuses to open up channels to undermine the vote. And I don't think that's very democratic. 800-288-9227. All right, now that we have the election started, let's talk to you. Rob, Royce City, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
Trump all the way.
Why?
Just look at the economy and everybody coming across the border.
So economy and the border, you are the walking embodiment of what the surveys tell us are the two biggest issues in this election cycle. Is that enough for him to win?
I'm hoping so, because if not, we're going to be in trouble.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir. Rob in Royce City. See, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Not, Donald Trump's a Nazi or Kamala Harris is a communist. No, he wants the economy, the economic policies, and the border policies. And we already know what they look like because we already had them for 4 years. Sticking in on the phones, Bree in Dallas. Hey, Bree in Dallas, you're next up on the James Show on WBAP. Your thoughts on Election Day?
Hi, what's going on? I am voting for President Trump.
Why?
Because I'm ready for him to hold these immigrants and these other foreigners liable for their actions against any of us, against any of our citizens, or especially our officials. They need to be held accountable and put them to death. Kill them all. If they want to come here so bad, then they need to want to be here instead of just doing everything else that shows that they just want to come take over.
Okay. Immigration is your driving motivation. I appreciate it. Did you already vote today?
I'm voting tomorrow, and I'm taking 11 people. I call it the Bree Challenge, but I will let you know also for your listeners, I am what some would consider African American. I'm a mixed race, so I'm black and white technically. but I was raised by my black grandmother. So I am voting for President Trump, and I am a black woman. So get off of the tape with all of this, Kamala's black, so let's vote for her. Let's not make this Obama mistake where he buried all of that money into Obamacare, trillions and trillions of dollars of us in debt. Like, we don't need that. It's time for a change, and it's time to make America great again. It's not just about white people versus black people. It's not a race war. This is about our country and about us owning our country and continuing to care for who we are. So I just want to put that out there if I can.
Well, Bree, you put it out there and everyone heard it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the enthusiasm.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Bree.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, coming up next, the story that's floating around the headlines, I haven't really talked about it because I hadn't looked into it a whole lot until now. And the planned execution of a guy in Texas last week was halted by Texas officials and politicians. Let's talk about why it was delayed. Should it be delayed? Is this just another flimsy excuse for the anti-death penalty people to make you doubt the death penalty or what? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Sports fans, I've been bragging about the Prize Picks app for the last almost 2 months here. Not doing a whole lot of bragging this weekend. They can't all be home runs. But other than that, I'm still up. Don't worry, I'm still up. But it's a fun way to where now pretty much any day of the week you can pop open the app and there's some sport that you like that have some action going on, and you can add a little spice to it because now we got hockey going on, we got basketball going on, baseball still going on. I'm a big football fan, and I think I'll just have to stick with the Cowboys because it was dangerous waiting out of my comfort zone this weekend. But you pull it up, you see what the stat line is, and you pick more or less. There you go. You get a lineup of 2 to 6 players, and you can turn a little bit of money into a lot of money. And I can help you do that with the beginning of your Prize Picks career. Download the app. Use promo code WBAP with your first $5 play. You're going to get $50 in promo cash that you can play with and turn into some real money. So download the Prize Picks app. Add a little fun to the sports you already love. $5 with promo code WBAP gets you an extra $50 to play with and see if you like it. James Parker here for the Prize Picks app. Run your game. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Well, we have early voting starting in Texas today, and then I think I stepped on an ant pile here. I'm not a big fan of early voting. I was trying to make my case. Got some people calling in. Hang on, Anthony Russo. We'll talk to you after I get yelled at by a couple of callers here. I might be wrong on this one. Look at all everyone's against me. Oh, this will be fun. Jeremy in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. Your thoughts on early voting?
Hi, James. I can't understand why you would be opposed to early voting or why anyone would be opposed to it. The Democrats have dominated early polling historically they have. And, just as I heard on this radio...
Wait, hang on. Are you a Democrat?
Ago, no. I want to beat the Democrats.
So you're saying...
You're on.
So you're saying early voting has been beneficial to Democrats?
Yeah,
But you wildly support it and can't understand why I don't.
I want Republicans to get involved and to vote early and get as many people opposed. Just like I heard on the same channel 2 hours ago. Grab someone, grab 10 people, vote early, vote in person. We got to win this thing. We do the same. Whose team are you on? That's what I want to know. Okay, so
let me try to do the nuance. Because we live under early voting rules, absolutely everyone listening should go early vote. Hell yeah, you should. I'm saying we shouldn't have this system, and you would like the results if we got rid of this system and went back to the previous system. For one thing, you've already admitted that election results would lean toward your preference, Jeremy, yet you still are fighting to maintain this system. But there's a whole lot of problems with early voting, and maybe you didn't hear it earlier, so I should repeat it. Early voting poses a whole lot of fraud risk. There's all you got to do is make some ballots disappear from a Republican precinct, and you can have a big effect on it. It's also if you're trying to sneak in ballots, if you want to go get the roster, cross-reference the voter rolls with the people who died in the last few years, and if they're still on the voter rolls, let's go ahead and fill them out a ballot, and then we could just sneak it into the system. And then even if we steal the election, it can't be overturned. There can't be fraud that was proven in a court of law if you do it like that. So, yeah, just the fraud concerns, period. Also, on so many of these issues, I just default to what the founding fathers thought. And in a time when they had horses and buggies, if you were lucky, they didn't even have trains yet. they were cool with doing elections all on one day, all counted on the same day, and we know the results by the time you wake up in the morning. So whenever there is a gray area, I do kind of tend to default toward what the founding fathers thought, but really it's a dream come true if you're trying to steal a race. It is a dream come true if you're a guy that's stuffing the ballot box, or you're trying to sneak in some results and try and skew it your way. It's almost, I don't want to say it's impossible without it, but it just opens up a whole big avenue of monkey business. And there's also the risk that happens when you have these votes that are just chilling in the trunk of someone's car. That's how you come up with like the Al Franken race, where they just kept counting votes until I found another box of votes in the back of some poll worker's car, I guess we better throw that in there. That's how you come up with crap like that. And I think it's stolen many of elections. It's been the vehicle by which democracy has been undermined more so than it's helped.
Everyone that votes today, their vote will be counted electronically and transmitted today. And if it's going to be switched electronically, or there's going to be some gerrymandering going on, it'll happen in a millisecond over a computer system. It doesn't matter if they have 2 weeks to cheat. That can be pulled off in a fraction of a second if that's actually going to take place. So the early voting is not going to leave it susceptible any more than it would if you voted on the actual November 5th. You could cheat if it's actually occurring. It would happen all the same, and it could be instant. It doesn't matter that you have 2 weeks to pull it off.
But Jeremy, that works against you too. If I go find, like, if I know my neighbor died and I go fill out a ballot in his name, right? I get these ballots that are mailed out, like it's San Antonio. They just mailed out a ton of ballots. If I go get a whole bunch, if I go get his and I fill it out, I can put it in, and guess what? It'll be counted and tabulated that day by the computer system, never to be undone. And it's still a fraudulent vote. That's not a prevention of fraud. That's a calcification of fraud.
Well, I advocate for vote early, vote in person, and also, I'm fearful that I want to make it as soon as I possibly can when early voting starts to get my vote in. I'm anxious to get my vote in for Trump myself personally. Yeah, and I want to get my vote in because there's a chance I might die before the election and then end up voting Democrat too, just like you're saying.
I know, but now you're cheating the election. Now you're a dead person who's decided. That's one of my complaints against it, is that there's people who's not even alive on election day, and their vote's going to count as much as yours does. But look, like the Hunter laptop situation comes to mind. There was a whole bunch of people who had already early voted when we got the story about Hunter's laptop out there. And so if you vote early, maybe you're not as informed as you would be on election day, and you don't make as good of a decision as you otherwise would. Also, look, you could maybe find a soft spot in me for early voting, like maybe a 2 or 3 day voting window. But this 2 week crap, this is, especially when they do it for a whole month. You have a bunch of people who are walking around or running around, and they hear a story that makes them mad, and dang it, I'm just going to go vote. And they go vote while they're angry. They go vote because someone fired them up, or some Al Sharpton interview, lit a fire under them. And you get emotional voting, not, the rational, well thought out, calm voting. And I just think you get better results. Okay, now I don't know, man. I'm pretty emotional. I think everyone's pretty emotional about this election, and if someone is going to be wavered in the next 2 weeks for, that's got to be such a small percentage. It's not even going to affect the election. I would think most people who doesn't have their mind made up, who could not be grounded in who they're going to vote for, regardless. Well, I'm voting for the felon, regardless of what happens. I'll tell you who it is. It's all these people who, when they get out of college, they're on Team Blue, and by the time they get a mortgage, a house, a family, a kid, and they're in their 40s, they're voting for Team Red. There's people that are constantly evolving. They're going across the aisle on a day-to-day basis, and you don't see it because you made that conversion a long time ago if you weren't born on Team Red. But it's a great discussion to have, Jeremy. You were you gave your points well. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And see, so now I'm not like, if you're for early voting, you're an idiot. No, it's a rational discussion that deserves to be had. I'm not 100% on my position. I just think, my preference is the system that we had, that you and I were dealing with for most of our lives up until about 2012, was superior. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, Anthony Russo from the Truth Will Set You Free podcast, as we walk through Decision 2024. 15 days until the election. Who you voting for? Why do you like early voting? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. All right, Fiona Apple, that's a good choice. That James Show approval. Anthony Russo is my next guest. Anthony Russo from the Truth Will Set You Free podcast. Hey, welcome to the James Show. And it is now early voting. The election season has begun in Texas. Your thoughts, Anthony?
I mean, first off, I want to say what Jeremy had. Jeremy brought up some great points. You guys had a middle ground that we got to talk about with early voting. So I agree with you. 2 weeks, especially a month, way too long. But I think you guys might have been conflating, or you might have been conflating the idea of mail-in voting. And unless somebody has a drastic excuse, unless they apply for mail-in voting, say they're out of town and they have a reason, there should be no mail-in voting. That's why all the numbers get all swayed and there's boxes that all of a sudden appear at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you guys both had great points. I'm going to go ahead and award it a tie, a draw in that conversation. But it's great to actually be able to have that conversation and say rationally, who is actually okay with early voting when it comes to mail-in ballots and just shipping it, mass amounts of them to random people. But yeah, it's time for early voting, and I do believe that we should get out early, vote early. Now that it's available, let's start voting right now.
Well, I think that's one of the bonds that talk radio has with its audience. Most talk radio hosts, happens to lean toward Team Red here. And even when you disagree with us, you don't get called a Nazi or a bigot or a racist or something horrible. We just have a difference of opinion and we try and work through it without calling each other names. Isn't that amazing, Anthony?
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I think it is that here's the conspiracy side on early voting is if, and this is where I could almost be swayed to more, your original comment is, technically, they're not supposed to be able to count. They enter the ballots, but that somebody knows what's going on. Somebody's able to see the tally. Somebody's able to see the digital numbers. So who's not to say that when push comes to shove, if we believe there's nefarious characters, that they can say, all right, we need 27,422 votes in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So that's my fear with early voting. Granted, I don't think there's any way around it, because if we tell people, Republicans, that we're already begging to vote, gun owners to vote, and all these things, if we say wait until Election Day, I think that also goes against us. It's a lose-lose, but in the end, I think where we sit as Republicans, I think we're at a win-win place. I think Trump has the driver's seat. The question is it too big to rig right now?
Yeah, and I totally would probably need to say that 10 more times, because people, even though I say it, don't hear it. Early vote. We have early voting, and since we have early voting, I am not discouraging anyone from early voting. I am simply saying, in the manner of statecraft for future elections, this may not be the best system to, for democracy. And there was a comment on Facebook. It's like, how on earth could early voting or ending early voting is a threat to, wait, hang on. How was that worded? I have it up here. Hang on, I'll get it. Early voting is not democratic. WTF. Well, anytime you can open up the avenues for votes to either be thrown out or fraudulent votes to be added to the tally, yeah, that's undemocratic.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't really make sense to me, to be totally honest. It's not. That's not undemocratic. Now, sending mass amounts of ballots to people that potentially could be used in a nefarious manner, and not like it's difficult. It's actually very, very easy. That, to me, would be considered undemocratic. But just early voting, if that's the rules of the current voting system that has been voted on, and there's been people put in place in local elections to actually determine those laws, there's no reason why that's undemocratic. Now, can you say it's stupid? You could say that, like, logically, it opens it up. It could be stupid. That's something that we can have a discussion on, but undemocratic, false.
All right, what's going on the podcast these days, Anthony?
2 weeks to election, man. We had Bobby Sausalito on last week. Got 2 weeks until we can hopefully convince 13 more people to shift sides, which in the grand scheme of things, I think will make a big difference.
All right. How do they find your podcast?
Truth Will Set You Free USA on all the social media networks. Our biggest following is on Twitter now, which is just the initials TW. Truth Will SYF_USA. That's it. Find it there.
Truth Will Set You Free USA. Thank you very much, Anthony Russo.
Thank you, brother.
I knew he'd have a good take on that. Let's ask Tony. Or no. Lacey's been there long. Lacey in Flower Mound, you're on WBAP. Your thoughts on early voting?
Yes, I agree with your position about the Founding Fathers and what their plan was for voting, but they also didn't have as many people voting the way that we do now.
What do you mean?
And Well, I mean, we've got millions upon millions of people voting now.
They had millions back then.
Yes, but it was the culture in the society, like, we have to have a little more flexibility there. And I do agree with you that it shouldn't be 2 weeks or a month. A week is fine. Where my bone is with the early voting is the mass ballots. I spent 23 years in the military, and to get a ballot to mail in early, they should have to go through the same stringent process I did to request a ballot and prove who they were to even get a ballot and stuff. So I think there should be a little more flexibility just because of life and children and other things. I don't think it's an inconvenience on election day necessarily, but I have a little bit of sympathy there for families that want to try to get in to vote.
Why didn't the Founding Fathers do it? They didn't even have cars. They had to, maybe if they were lucky, take a horse into town to vote.
I understand, but there also women weren't allowed to vote. Certain other people weren't allowed to vote during that time.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you making your case on the James Show. Thank you, Lacey.
Okay, thank you.
Good points all around. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. 15 days until the election. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit on a story from the healthcare system, but also we'll continue with this Election Day topic as well if you want to call in on that. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. It is now voting season. It's not rabbit season. It's not duck season. It's voting season. Early voting starts today in Texas. Are you for it or against it? We've been having a spirited back and forth, and I love it when most of the callers disagree with me, because you probably hear, if you've been listening to the James Show, I ask for people who disagree. Well, today I'm getting it. Robert in Oakleaf, you're on WBAP. Your thoughts on early voting?
Hi, James. Yeah, I love your show. I listen whenever I can.
Thank you.
I was just while I was waiting for you to answer, I was writing you a letter because with quill and parchment, just like the Founding Fathers. But I didn't need to finish it because you answered. So I'm gonna tell you what I'm disappointed in your opinion. Now I agree with you on most things, but I'm disappointed in your opinion that you want to deny millions. I'm not talking not a few, but millions of people the chance to vote, all because it's on one day.
How am I denying them?
Well, you would be if you wanted to change it back to the one day voting, which is what didn't you not say that you would want to do that?
Yes. Okay.
So now you've got, I'm on the 5th, I'm going to be 1,000 miles away from my house because I'm a pilot. Okay. 1/3 of every airline is gone from home. Then you have your law enforcement officers. You have people that are bus drivers, truck drivers. You want to shut all that down? How would you like to go to, you get an emergency call from your mom someplace. She's dying. You run to the airport to jump on the airplane, but everybody's called in sick because they're voting that day. You can't get to your mom before she dies. You got to have these institutions in order to operate. We cannot go back to the pen and quill and Paul Revere days of communications. And so it's impossible for a lot of people to be at home. This early voting is absolutely wonderful. I voted today. I voted for Trump. Kamala Harris is not capable. And so I just think I'm so thankful that I can go vote early because I'm not going to be here on. And you don't realize, see, you get to go home every night. I bet. I'm guessing you get to go home every night. And most people do. But there's a huge percentage that don't get to go home every night because they're a long ways off from home.
So would my opinion be more valid if I didn't get to go home every night? Would that have an effect on whether or not early voting is effective?
Because that's what I'm telling you. You don't understand. You don't understand my occupation. You don't understand other people's occupation.
What makes you think I don't understand that?
Because you think that everybody can be home on the 5th to vote.
No, I never said that. That's not my position.
So in that case, you want to be on the 5th or on voting day, and the heck with everybody who can't vote that day. Is that what your opinion is?
I'm holding the same opinion as the founding fathers, and my opinion isn't to heck with everyone who can't vote on that day. It's a sad, acceptable tragedy. Just like when we have cars, there's going to be 35,000 people who die in car wrecks this year, but it's an acceptable downside to what is an overwhelming positive. Now, early voting is something that happened. I mean, one-day voting just happened in France. Now, did all the planes fall out of the sky, or did they come to a screeching halt? How did they just do it last year? And how did we do it in America all the way up until like the 80s? Actually, it was Texas that became the first state to offer early in-person voting, and that didn't happen until the 80s. How do we do it for the first 200 years of American history without an egregious violation of rights, like you claim?
Well, yeah, if you can't have early voting, now I'm totally against the drop boxes. I mean, that is fraud all over the place. And I know your concern is about fraud, but
primarily,
we cannot do everything that the founding fathers did. All right, we can't operate this country like the founding fathers.
No, but we can go vote on a computer. We can take our automobile or a helicopter or something to go vote on a computer. Or if we have to, a ballpoint pen. We don't have to use the quill and parchment. I love your joke there, the sarcasm. So we would probably get along if we agreed on the subject. But no, I think we have to agree on this because, for all the people that have called in, I don't know who is cool with the ballots being mailed out. I mean, that's just
no, I'm not
beyond egregious for everybody. So at least we're like half in agreement here. What if we made the compromise to where? What if I just made like a 48-hour window? You got 2 days. You can vote on Monday or Tuesday. I mean, is there anything that would win you over? I mean, like you're not concerned about the negative outcome on these early votes?
Okay, no, I tell you what, I'm not concerned because when I went down and voted at Red Oak, that they took my license and they took my voter's registration card and they made sure that I was a correct voter.
Right. Now in California, really this year it's illegal for them to ask for your ID. Like, not only do you not have to show it, if you pull out your ID and hold it in front of their face, they have to look away. Like, that's what they're being trained to do right now. I appreciate the spirited debate.
Okay. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 8-day trips. So you don't understand the transportation system. There's people that are gone for 8 days.
What makes you think I don't understand that? What makes you think I've never thought of that? Like, I don't know that we have people that are gone for days at a time, truckers and pilots and, people like I have a friend who works on assembly lines, like on how it's made. He has to go to like Kansas City for 2 weeks and then he comes home for a week and then he goes to Chicago for 2 weeks. Then he comes home and he goes to some dog food plant in Seguin for a week. Yeah, I'm aware these people exist and I've thought about it before.
You shouldn't be against it. You shouldn't be against the early voting. Because early voting gives everybody opportunity to vote. And that's what the main thing is. It gives everybody opportunity to vote.
I appreciate it, Robert. I'm just out of time.
Be able to. Okay. All right.
Hey, and thanks for being polite about it. I really appreciate that.
Okay.
Because I don't want disparate third parties. I know you and I would get along. I don't want people to think that we are the angry people that the caricature is made of us on the rest of the media. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Bill Hennessy. There's a story out there that went viral. A woman shared how much it costs to have her baby, and that seems a little high. What are we doing about that? Is this election going to help it? We'll talk about that issue coming up next. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.